Now start. There was
Awesome.
a delay.
Hello, everybody. I'm Angel Castillo. I'm running for Ogden Mayor, and we are holding a town hall that is at the request of Matt Spencer, who is a local comp team sports coach, baseball and football, and we also have a soccer coach in the audience, and we're going to talk about our basic things that I'm running on my campaign, but this is a chance to really talk about some things that we normally don't hit on so much, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is access for all youth to sports, because it can be very life-changing, and one of the great things about comp teams is you can participate and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and there's that mentorship that builds. So we're going to have a conversation about other things, but the questions are probably going to be focused more on sports and education. So please feel free to ask questions in the feed. Callie is manning our Q&A, so just put them out there and she will ask them to me. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Angel Castillo. I'm running for Ogden Mayor. I'm on the Planning Commission. I am originally from Chicago. I spent the last 18 years in Los Angeles. I came to Ogden to race USA Cycling Masters Nationals. And prior to that, Ogden and Utah wasn't really on my radar, and I came here for the race, and I fell head over heels in love with the town. Ogden is an amazing jewel. You're right next to the mountains. You have these beautiful wide streets and 25th Street with all that great architecture. I mean, it's really something, like the Grand Canyon. Pictures don't really do it justice, but once you get here, you're like, wow, this is totally the place to be. And so when I went home from the race, we were planning on leaving LA, and I just pretty much wouldn't shut up about Ogden. We gotta go, we have to look at it. This is really an amazing place. And so my fiance and I came here and on a Saturday, and we looked at some property with a realtor, and I was given, it's like, well, if we don't like it, then, it's gotta be a full, both of us have to agree. And the same thing happened. By the time we were having coffee in the morning, it was, we don't need to look any further. So any of the other cities on our list were just gone, and I already knew that this is where I wanted to live. And so we're here. And I got really involved in the community immediately. We unpacked our U-Haul on a Saturday, and I was at a city council meeting on a Tuesday. And for the last 2 years, except for a period of 4 weeks or so when I had my hip rehabilitation, I had a hip replacement. Yeah, I know, right? It seems like something that you would do, I thought for sure I was going to be 70, but no, genetics, yay. So I had a hip replacement, and I missed 4 weeks of meetings, but other than that, I have been there, and I attend work sessions, and I serve on the YCC board, and I also serve on the board for Roads to Independence, which, although I am not physically disabled, you kind of have a tendency to go for what you have a direct experience with. And when you rehab with a walker for a few months, you start to realize how important access for handicapped individuals is. And, automatic doors and curb cuts so that you can walk, and level sidewalks. And there's a lot of things that are happening that need to be fixed with our infrastructure to make sidewalks accessible for everybody, but particularly it's a barrier for seniors and for people who have a physical disability involving movement. So being here and wanting to make sure that we have our identity preserved is really important to me. And I came from a city where I saw the front lines of a housing crisis and a homeless crisis, and that's why I made a beeline for the Planning Commission and, stalk the city planner until I got a meeting to sit down and talk to him and make sure that I'm involved in it, because I want to make sure that the mistakes that were made in another city aren't made here. And those are growth mistakes that involve planning and making sure that the citizens are involved in decisions and housing, and I plan to grow old and die here. So I want to make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, we don't make mistakes, and that we are planning for what happens. I make a joke a lot of the time, I feel like the ghost of Christmas future. because I came here and I talk about it all the time in public comments in the city council meetings that, we have to pay attention to housing. We have to pay attention to the homeless issues, because if we don't, they're going to move to crisis level, and we can put some things into place and mitigate those. And one of my big things is inclusionary zoning. And inclusionary zoning is overly simplified whenever a commercial developer builds a building that's 10 units or more of residential. So this is not someone trying to build personal wealth with a duplex or a triplex. This is someone who's going to drop millions of dollars building residential units. When they build, they have to set aside 20% of that building to accommodate low-income and middle-income housing. And our median income for Ogden is $43,000. We are a blue-collar, working-class town. And our rents are rising, where it's really difficult for people to have access to rent where they're not spending more than 30% of their income on rent, because that's HUD defines that as rent burden. That anytime you spend more than 30% of your income on rent or a mortgage, you're at risk of food scarcity, medical issues. I mean, it just sort of sets you up. And there are actually people that are spending 40% and 50% of their income on rent, and that's just not a healthy, sustainable model. So inclusionary zoning can fix that, and it's at no cost to the city, and the developer has a whole lot of benefits added to that. They get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit from the government, so they have more money to build with, and the city gives them a higher density bonus. And so what happens is where you normally would only build 50 units, you can now build 70 units. And so for developers, it's about square footage. They have more units, they're making more money, and the inclusionary zoning part allows them to have more units so that they make more money. And there's no difference between the market rate units versus the inclusionary zoning units. Finishes may be different, like the market rate ones might get marble countertops, and the lower rate ones would get Formica, but it's still the same size, it's still the same quality, just finishes are different. And they also get lower parking space requirements, and those are really hard for developers because they're paying for empty space. And it's a win-win situation. Salt Lake City signed it into law last year. In my opinion, it was a couple of years too late, because we are already seeing people that are moving here from Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County because they can pop on the front runner to still work in Salt Lake City, but our real estate values are lower than Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County, and that's not for long, which is why I want to make sure that we're taking care of the people who build this town, the people who work at our Costco, the people who work at coffee shops, your kids, when they graduate with 2 degrees and a lot of student debt, and they want to be able to go out on their own, where are they going to rent if they're not going to live in your basement? We have to make sure that we have some real estate that's available to them, that's affordable, so that they can save to buy a condo or a home, but we need to facilitate that, and it's a proven model. I'm a marketing consultant by trade, so I spend a lot of time not reinventing the wheel. I focus on smaller, medium-sized businesses of less than 500 employees. And when people come to me, we have a widget. How is your widget special? How do we market that widget? How do we set you apart from the pack? And we look at other people who make those widgets. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So as a city, I feel we can do the same thing, looking to other cities where inclusionary zoning has worked. What were the pain points, if any? How do we mitigate those as we move forward? And I basically take that same approach to everything that I'll be doing as mayor. We want to make sure that we are doing what's best for Ogden, and there are plenty of other cities that are at our sides that have things in play that are helping them manage their growth issues, helping them manage their infrastructure issues. And we can look at that and we can adopt it to our plan. My other big things are public safety. I've been talking about that ever since I got here. We have an issue with our police officers not being paid on par or even close to what Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County is paying. And our officers deserve more, and more importantly, we have an exodus that's happening within our police department because they're leaving for jobs that pay, depending on their experience, between $8 to $10 an hour more. And that's a significant number, and I don't fault anybody for making that move to take care of their family, to put food on their table, to save for college, right? But we're losing experienced officers, and what we need are experienced officers, because officers at 4 or 5 years have the kind of on-the-job training that you can't teach, where they learn to de-escalate situations. They know that a shoulder drop or an eyebrow twitch means that the subject is going to do this or that, and I've seen that before, and I know how to answer that, and I know how to respond to that. Junior officers need that time on the job to get that, so we need senior officers, and every community that I've talked to wants foot patrols, wants a higher police presence, so that, and they want to know the officers that are in their neighborhood. Our officers have more calls than Salt Lake City does, so why wouldn't they leave for more money, for less work? And we're understaffed, and so we cannot put out foot patrols because it takes longer for a foot patrol to go around, and you have to have somebody in a vehicle that can respond to an emergency call. So part of that problem is the wage, and we have $200 million that's budgeted for next year, and we had 175.9 last year, and we're not giving the taxpayers a return on investment for that money. Because I walk around and I've talked to thousands of people since I've started campaigning, and I hear the same thing: public safety, sidewalks, youth access, and then this is where we'll get into why you guys are here. Recreation is a big part of Ogden, and we want to make sure that our kids have access to them, and not just the kids that are really privileged and well off, the kids that are not so privileged, the kids that have, one parent who's working 2 jobs, who can't shuffle them back and forth to practices. That's where comp teams come in, where coaches play that mentor role. Comp team coaches do the kind of work that teachers do, where they're buying pencils and notebooks out of their pocket, and comp coaches are buying equipment and giving rides and playing a part in our youth's outcome, where they're going. Because if we have kids that aren't busy, they're going to be taken down a path that may not be really great for their future. And we want to keep them off drugs, we want to keep them out of crime, we don't want them in gangs, we want them engaged in our community, and sports is a magnificent way to do that. A couple of years ago, Big Sky did a presentation to the City Council and reviewed sports and athletic programs in schools and gave a list of where things could be done and how they could be better, because one of the phrases that they used, sports is the front porch of your school. If you don't have a good team, and good meaning like decent playing conditions, nice uniforms, and good coaching, your front porch isn't going to be that accommodating or inviting to people. And when those kids are involved in sports, their time is taken up, and they're surrounded by people who can mentor them, who can help be the solution to some of the struggles that they might be encountering at home. And so that's one of the things that Matt and I resonated with. We went to one of the city council citizen conversations. The city council wanted to know what people want. And the interesting thing is I've been running my own surveys door to door as I'm canvassing for the mayoral spot, and there's a lot of the same things that are happening. What we heard in those focus groups, or what I'm hearing on front porches, and what people are telling me. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to start shifting our priority as a city to addressing citizens' needs. Now, everybody doesn't get a pony. We can't do absolutely everything on the list, but if we have what's important to people, we can make sure that we're taking steps towards the things that really matter. We're measuring what matters. I'm hearing an awful lot about the Marshall White Center, which the pool hasn't been fixed, and the city has said that their response in city council was, oh, well, we're holding off on that because we're in negotiation with the YMCA. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I would love a YMCA, but even if you pulled the trigger with YMCA today, it's going to take 2 years. And that's optimistic. to design it, to get it planned, get it permitted, get it put up, raise the money, it'll be a matching bond system kind of thing. It's going to take 2 years, and so in that 2 years, we have a community that is underserved, that doesn't have access to a pool. And it's not just the seniors that use the pool, it's the kids. And those kids can use that pool for $2. They're not going to be able to afford to go to a YMCA. And when we remember what's happening in that area, those kids don't have a mom shuttle bus to take them to another location. They need something in the community. So I want to make sure that we're looking at where we're spending money, and we're going to be efficient and smart about it. I mean, we do a lot of commercial investing in properties that have given us no return on investment so far. That would be the Rite Aid property on 24th. It's been empty for almost 5 years, right? Your tax dollars paid for that to sit empty. We have no development agreement signed with anybody for that. The Hostess site, no development agreement. The Swift building, not only do we not have a development agreement, the EPA has said that the charge for cleaning that is $1.7 to $2 million. And let me tell you, the EPA doesn't do charity work, right? And we signed an agreement with the Swift family absolving them of any responsibility of what was in that building. So when the EPA comes calling to collect, you're gonna pay for it. And I think that, well, yes, sometimes you do need to buy and invest in commercial property. We've been doing it for 8 years with no return on investment. So let's stop spending, let's keep what we've got, focus on that, and take that money that we're continually dumping into it and put it into things that are important to the community. And not only just the community, but our businesses that are here. Our small businesses aren't getting the support that they need. I've spoken to a lot of businesses, and they've relayed me the struggles of opening up their business and how long it took to get through planning, and that needs to be addressed as well. Other cities are putting what's called a shot clock. You guys know what a shot clock is. Half of the time I have to explain that. But shot clock, basketball, 3 seconds, you gotta shoot. So it's the same thing. Other cities have put shot clocks in their planning commission. Texas, a couple of cities in Texas just did this. And what that means is that when you come and you apply for a permit, the clock starts and you're done by 90 days. And it forces accountability on the planning commission, or not the planning commission, the planning department, to move that through appropriately. Because right now what's happening is, it happens when it happens, you need this, come back with this, okay, I can't look at that for 2 weeks. And we need some accountability to make it easy on businesses to come here and do what they want to do, open a business and bring in revenue, and that's good for Ogden. So I want to do that, and we want to make sure that we are supporting our local businesses with conversations of, what do you need? Do you need a piece of equipment to take you to that next level? Do you need to buy some property to take your business to that next level, to hire more people to grow? We have the ability to partner with banks and offer very low interest loans to make those things happen. We have a lot of sway and power as a city when it comes to money. And a lot of people don't know this, but banks have to have a quota to meet for small businesses. They have to, at the end of the year in their fiscal report, they have to show that we did some good things with these small businesses here. So it's not always these big deals. So if you are partnered with a city and you have those relationships, that money is there. You just need somebody to care and mentor you through that process. And we have one of my favorite city employees, her name is Sarah Stoffers. The city does do that, but it doesn't, we need more Sarahs, and we need more money in our budget for more Sarahs so that we can help our local businesses. And while we still need to look outside to bring in cutting edge business, my big thing is tech. Why don't we have a piece of the tech pie? Governor Herbert is spending millions of dollars at Point of the Mountain and Silicon Slopes, and there is no reason why we can't participate in that. We have the front runner, we have the glorious mountains and the outdoor rec, and a lot of tech can be done. If you have a job, it can be done virtually. I know 2 people who work in Draper. They have Skype meetings, they take a train maybe once every 2 weeks, And we also have the land to manufacture tech things. Why aren't we courting those companies? And I want to even it out. Right now, what's happening in the city is that we're pushing for bigger development. We're investing all sorts of money to try to buy property behind Union Station, and we need to be focusing on our businesses that are here, and we need to be developing those key relationships with bigger companies and bringing them here. And right now, it's a little lopsided. There's a lot of focus on outside, and hey, come on in. There's a lot of focus on outside, and we need to have the best turnaround here locally. It is much easier for a local business to produce and grow with revenue than it is if we get a company, like the YMCA example. It's gonna take 2 years for a company to get here. You develop a relationship with a big company, they're gonna do a manufacturing thing, it's gonna take 2 years. So I say we split that focus and that interest so we start the immediate return with our smaller businesses by trying to grow them while we're waiting for the bigger businesses to come on board. So one of the things that I've learned when I was talking to people who are active in sports with kids and do the soccer team, baseball team shuffle with multiple children, I was appalled to find out, and I've heard it multiple times, that there's a finite number of practice fields that are available, and that there are local kids and local teams living in Ogden who have to practice outside of Ogden, that there are kids from other cities that are practicing here. Now, I'm all for supporting youth sports, but I gotta tell you, your tax dollars pay for those fields, your kids should go first. It should be a priority listing that all of the Ogden comp teams get first priority on booking fields, and then everybody else fills in, because they're your tax dollars. Why should your kids be missing out and other kids be using that time? And your time is precious. Why should you be schlepping your kids to another city when you have real estate right here that you could be using? That's phenomenal to me. And that is something I would immediately change. That's an easy fix. That is an easy fix with whoever is handling parks and recs and booking, and it just is a mandate that says Ogden first and everybody else fills in. And one of the things that is really important to me is that we expand our outreach to get sports to kids that are at a lower economic level. You know, it's great that everybody gets to play, but if we want to look at the big picture, there's all sorts of data that supports that you get kids in sports, they're not getting arrested. They're not doing bad things. They're being stimulated, they're being taught leadership skills, they're being taught team skills, and they have a mentor that is outside of the parents that is gonna help guide them through that process. And we don't have enough of that happening. We need to make a concerted effort. And again, there's so much available. There's plenty of ramp grants that can be applied for to help fund this type of thing. I don't believe that we have to just go out and madly spend our money. There are so many state and federal grants that are available, and there are parents just like you that are willing to champion getting those grants to fund your team, and we as a city should be helping you do that, making sure that these are the grants that are available, and maybe we can schedule some time with some people in our department that will help you write that grant, and we want to make sure that we get those kids the support that they need. So I guess let's talk about questions. There's a microphone out there because we're streaming on Facebook and the sound quality is much better. And I'd also like to, Mitch, we have a soccer player here, like a professional soccer player. What's your name?
Richard.
Richard?
Nolasco.
Pardon?
Richard Nolasco.
There you go. Use the microphone.
It's Richard Nolasco.
Okay, and so in a nutshell, just for a couple of seconds, so we talk about why youth sports are important, give me a little bit of your story of how Mitch and a local Ogden team changed your life.
So, it's growing up in Ogden, there's not, some families don't have the time, or, some parents don't have the time to take, your children to training or, for practice, and depending on the area as well, because some parents have to work late. Mm-hmm. So, just kind of making my effort, knowing people like Mitch, who was able to, give me rides sometimes, or, offer different programs that were close to me. That gave me the opportunity to go out there and, and train with my friends, and sorry, and just kind of get out there, kind of get exposed to the community, get to know more people, more kids, grow up around the environment. So, that's something that I grew up to, being able to learn from different coaches around the area, getting opportunities like semi-pro, traveling to Mexico, different other states as well. So that's just part of the game,
right.
But it has to start somewhere. So just kind of being here, gives us that opportunity, to go ahead and give back to the younger kids who are going to be our future.
Excellent.
And so.
Yeah, and the reason that this is so important is the more that I talk to people, I keep hearing stories like this over and over and over. Granted, you're like a big success story because you went along the professional circuit, but the point of the matter is that Mitch and other people who are coaching have told me the stories of how their lives were changed by their coach, how being part of a team was essential to them growing and evolving as a person, and they're involved in giving back. And so I think it's really important that we put some focus on that in the city. Nobody's talking about it. I am. So let's have some questions.
Angel, you mentioned just a minute ago that we need to do a better job of marketing sports and athletic opportunities to the youth of Ogden, regardless of socioeconomic dynamics. I guess I would observe that there's one place where every kid in Ogden can be found, and that's at young ages, and that's in the schools. But I would also observe that the partnership between Ogden City and the Ogden School District leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, it's kind of adversarial, isn't it?
It is, from what I've noticed. Did you have any thoughts or plans or ideas as to how that partnership could be strengthened, and we could better market these athletics opportunities to a broader base of students, of youth, of kids, again, whether they're above Harrison, below Harrison, West Ogden, or wherever? I think that the participation levels are pretty woeful, actually, in this community. Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a teacher, and so what I did is I talked to a lot of teachers, and I'm not a Ogden administrator in the school district, so I talked to some administrators. I've talked to people at the state level, Rita Brock, who's in charge of the EARS program, which is the at-risk kids, and I sat down with, I'm sure you know Dale Wilkerson, and I spent quite a few hours with him talking about what needs to happen. And a lot of people, when they look at, Ogden schools aren't up to par, it's not necessarily what's happening in the schools, it's kind of what's happening outside of the schools. There's outside issues for the economically disadvantaged, child care, transportation, food scarcity, and all of that. And so we need to connect with our schools and work together. I really want to implement some of the changes that the Big Sky Association recommended to help bolster our school sports, and then recognize and develop that partnership of those kids may not play school sports, but we have a program for them to participate outside of school. And I think we just have bridges that need to be built. I've heard it from businesses, and I've heard it from teachers and parents that the city itself is really challenging to get things done, to get to the right person, to have conversations, and I am all about communication. I want to be the kind of mayor where you're going to be sick of seeing me, because I want to continue to talk to people to find out what's going on, and we have staff to handle the execution of these particular things. And talking to Dale and understanding how there is an evolution that's happening in the Ogden School District. It's not the relationships aren't as difficult as they were 10 years ago, and they're moving in the right direction. And there's something about the power of the office. Well, the mayor wants to sit down and talk to you. That's how I want to use the power of this office, to open the doors, to begin the conversations, to start looking at what's best for Ogden. Because even though we're talking about kids, if we're enriching those kids and giving them positive experiences and getting them engaged in the community through sports and through school, we're ultimately down the road going to see what everybody wants, and that's a drop in gang activity, that's a drop in drugs, that's a drop in crime. And we just need to bring everybody together. And I feel that I am the person that is going to be willing to pester somebody's gatekeeper until I get a meeting, until I get to talk to the right person, to find out how we can work together to change this. The schools should be embracing the comp team system, because it's not a competition, it's an enhancement. And we need to, the comp team system is set up to allow those kids who may not be rock stars that get on the school teams to still have that character building experience and still have fun playing sports, and something that their family can afford. I feel really strongly about sports. It's it was a big part of my high school life, and I went to state and track, and I had coaches that did and said things that helped me be the person that I am, that helped me build confidence, that helped me learn how to be a team player and be a leader when needed. So, you got it from me.
So you mentioned a bit about the need for more gym space or field space, and we have these coaches in our community that are pouring numerous hours into what they do for our kids, and then they hit these roadblocks. What are things?
Someone drop.
I didn't know it was that good.
It's kind of like the bass, but different. Political.
How do you envision helping support the coaches that are taking the time and the effort to try to be that mentor or put in that time with our kids, so they don't get frustrated and just give up and walk away?
Well, I think that comes down to support recruitment, about being able to make sure that we've got enough support from the city, and that might be people, that might be grants, that we need to make sure that everybody isn't doing it alone. And if we can remove some of those frustration roadblocks with booking field time, and we can help with sponsoring a matching grant to help get equipment and things that are necessary. I'm not talking about millions of dollars, I'm talking about a couple $1,000s. And one thing that I have learned when working with nonprofits is there's a grant for everything, absolutely everything. And one of the things that is, when you have the power of the office of the city, you're allowed a level of money and access to grant funds that you normally don't get. And there's no reason why we can't match grants and do the things that we need, but we need to sit down and have the conversations first. We need to bring in all the coaches, and we need to put up a whiteboard, and we need to list all the pain points, all the good things, and then find out, we'll have a common top 3 between everybody, and that's where we focus first. And what can we fix? But we can't have that without conversations. I mean, how many conversations have you had with the administration of the city talking about sports? Yeah, and he said 0. So, anybody? Oh, we got an onliner. Awesome.
This is actually for me personally.
Oh, it's for me personally, okay.
You answered the one with his question,
Okay,
so
got
that
it.
was online. So it's a little bit frustrating hearing that the city's not going to do anything thus far with the Marshall White Center for fixing the pool. The Marshall White Center does do a lot for our community. I played roller derby there for 5 years, and they gave us a low-cost space to be able to practice. So there's a lot of programs that are there that are more affordable for our community because they provide a low-cost space. And I know that we have quite a bit of our population that is lower income. So do you have any ideas on how to provide more sports opportunities or programs for the children who are in our at-risk neighborhoods and maybe lower income areas?
Absolutely. One of the things that we need to focus on as a city is we're doing a lot of great events. I mean, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm not enthralled with our city, because I am. I'm in love with it. I chose to be here. I never knew that I could be emotional about mountains until I had them. And we have a lot of things that we could be doing better. And you all have a personal experience with sports, and people have a tendency to be passionate about something they have a direct experience with. Sports changed my life, sports changed your life, sports changed people that run the Big Sky Commission, their lives. There's nobody in the city that's championing that, and this is something that we heard on those city council surveys, and I'm hearing door to door. This is a need for the community. And we need to sit down and we need to have those conversations, and we need to assign someone in the city that is going to help build those programs. Just like we have some people assigned to small business, or well, not small business development, business development. I think we need to focus more on small. We should have someone that is assigned to be the eyes and ears for what's happening on the school level for sports and what's happening with the comp teams, and is that liaison to bring everybody together and talk about what it is that we need. What kind of money do we need? Because almost always that's usually the answer of like, well, we could be better if we had this. And with sports, it usually involves an area that is affordable to practice in, and then it involves equipment, and then it involves qualified people to supervise the activity. Well, you have plenty of parents that are willing to give their blood, sweat, and tears to make difference in kids' lives, so I feel it's an obligation of the city that you should have low cost or free space to do that. And we can have grants that will fund that. And it is, the Marshall White Center is a pain point that I keep hearing over and over and over. It's an underserved community, and it was set up to serve that community. And it's not getting enough support, it's not getting enough attention, and that is going to require somebody putting a flag in the ground and going, this is important to our community, and we're going to commit some staff, and we're going to commit some resources to make the things happen that need to happen to serve that community. Because with the tide, all ships rise. Remember, the whole thing with the Marshall White Center providing activity, it keeps kids out of trouble. It gives adults a place to go to connect. I spoke to a group of like 50 adorable women who need the water aerobics because their bones and their muscles don't work so well in their 70s, and they need that pool. So, is that a question? No?
We've got a really weak signal.
Okay.
It's cutting in and out on the stream.
Angel, I have a question. A lot of people don't know this about me, but one of the reasons I got into sports, and I'm a testimonial on the benefits of it, is on the street there I grew up on 75th Street in Woodhaven, Queens, New York. The 4 kids that were my age, one of them's dead, one of them's in jail permanently, the other one's so messed up on drugs I don't know what's left of his mind, and I'm the only one that came out semi-normal on my street. And it's because somebody took the time to push me into sports and to show me, ironically enough, the Appalachian Mountains. You know, and what it did for me was amazing. And I'm a testimony of somebody taking the time to make sure that I was in other circles and saw the difference and could connect the dots and say, I want that, I don't want this. This is not okay. So it gives you motivation to strive for something better and to become a better person. So that's why, you know, we do that. But in answering that, would you look into maybe building some other fields in some areas that we could use here in Ogden to make it a mecca? Because we have a beautiful field on Monroe, but nobody could step on it.
That's right.
They're not allowed on it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like got dogs on it. You can't, you know, shoot, you know, on it. And everybody, all the kids that I knew when that was being built were so psyched for it, so looking forward to it. And now it's just there, but it's untouchable. Mm-hmm. You know, it's unfortunate, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a priority. And one of the things that I want to do as mayor is to force myself into Deloy Hanson's office. And because Deloy Hanson has daughters, I believe there's 6 daughters. And he has a mission to build indoor soccer stadiums across the United States so that kids can play all year round. We have so many people in this community that are wonderful with supporting charities and causes. I think that there is a way to tap into the philanthropic community that's here and get them to match grants, and we can build more facilities, and we can tap into people who already have the means and the mission to build more sports facilities. And bringing it back, I know I keep going on and on about the Big Sky Commission, but I'm a data geek, right? So I love it when there are actual numbers that correlate. You do this with sports programs, this is what happens to test scores. This is what happens to graduation rates. And it is an absolute proven fact that a good school program changes the culture of the school and helps kids do better. And and even if it's outside of school, even if the kids are just doing average in school, we need to make sure that those kids have access to sports outside of school, because they're going to get all the same benefits to that. It's really, really important to make sure we have outlets for youth energy and mentorship and bringing things to every community, not just the people who have a really wealthy tax base to work from. We have a section of our community that needs that, and that's exactly why the Marshall White Center was built, to serve that community that makes below $43,000. And that community needs sports and recreation just as much as the more privileged communities do. And it needs someone that wants to make it a priority. And I promise you, I want to make it a priority. Question? Okay.
One more from me?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So you've mentioned the mountains. Mitch, I heard you talk about somebody introduced you to the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, mountains are spiritual.
And so
they speak to you.
I agree. I also think, though, that one of the reasons that team sports in Ogden haven't gotten the attention that they probably deserve is because, at least for as long as we've been here, that there's this idea that we can't be both a mountain community and an urban community for some reason. And so precedence has been placed upon mountain sports, rock climbing, kayaking, mountain biking, trail running, etc. And the notion has been put forth that, well, with the mountains here, we don't really need team sports. What do you say to the person that shares that perspective with you and says, well, Angel, why do we need team sports here in Ogden? The mountains are right there. Have them go skiing. Have them go kayaking.
How many kids that you know that their parents collectively make $20,000 or less can afford kayaking and skiing? I'm thinking not a lot. And while there are some people that have benefactor programs that take some disadvantaged kids and get them the equipment that they need, and that's wonderful. The reality is it's much cheaper and easier and more accessible for communities that are a little lower on the socioeconomic status. And it's really important that we look at our community collectively. It's not just one group of people, it's a whole bunch of different groups of people, which is why we have different council members. Each one of those council members represent a section of that community. And East Central's needs are going to be a little different than East Bench needs, right? And not to say that we all can't coexist, we need to get connected to each other, but we have an urban population. It's not all of us, and that is the cool thing about Ogden, is it has these wonderful pockets of historic homes, and I don't think that should change at all. That's a wonderful section and portion of Ogden, but as we grow and as we have more higher density in the downtown area, we need to make sure that we're serving that community as well. And so I'm all for trail running. I'm a big trail person. I don't run, I walk. hip replacement. But it's a lovely thing that I like to appreciate, and the fact that what makes Ogden so special is that, you know, in 10 minutes you can be on a trail overlooking the whole view and feel like you're away from it all. And that's an amazing thing, and I'm all about protecting our trail access and using that, but there's more to life than just trails. There's more to life than just mountain biking. There are kids that want to play soccer, baseball, football, boxing, you know, I mean, and these are things that we have to allow access to.
I have a question.
Microphone, thank you.
The question from the live feed from Les regarding they are relatively new to Ogden as well. They asked how long you've been here, and how can folks who have lived here longer believe you know what's best for the city when he is still on the fence about you?
Okay, I respect that. Well, maybe you missed the beginning where I talked about how I dove into Ogden, you know, unpacked the truck, got on the city council, got on the planning commission. I have been engaged since I got here because I care, because I want to make sure that we preserve what we have and we plan for what we need. And my opponent in the primary, Dan Tabish, was born and raised here, and he didn't get the kind of support that I got because I'm in the community. I'm at every meeting. I'm talking to churches, I'm talking to community leaders, I'm talking to kids. I am really connected, and I am going to surround myself with people who are experts in areas. I don't know everything. No one person can know everything, but what I can do is I can make sure that when we bring in someone who's going to be, we have a youth sports person that's going to help work with the school districts and work with the comp teams and help build up our local recreational sports. You better believe that person is going to have been in local youth sports for 20, 30 years. That person is going to give me the knowledge that I need. And as a marketing consultant, I get hired for being an outsider, for having a fresh set of eyes looking at something and moving forward. And I am invested in community feedback. I am invested in working with the council. The council put together that survey to find out what people need, and I have it non-scientifically verified for the over 4,000 doors that I've knocked. The council is right. What people want are better public safety, streets and sidewalks, youth access for all. That has come up a lot in all of those meetings. And you know, those are kind of the top three, and affordable housing. That's on everybody's minds. You know, when you go to bed at night and you're wondering, am I gonna be okay? Am I gonna be able to make rent this month? Well, we need to provide you opportunities to pay less so that you don't have that worry. We need to make sure we have an adequately staffed police department so that you can rest easy, because you see lots of officers and you know those officers because they're walking a beat, because they're talking to you. So I have been here for just under 2 years, and in that under 2 years, I've been more involved than my competitor who was born and raised here. You know, I serve on 2 nonprofit boards. I'm at all the community meetings. I don't miss city council meetings. I go to the work sessions at 4 o'clock where you are not allowed to comment, but it's the preview of what's coming up and what's going to be on the agenda, so that you know what's coming down the pipe, so that you can have those conversations with the city council and go, hey, I know a lot of people are not going to be okay about that. Let's talk about this. You can't just expect to look at an agenda and show up at the city council meeting and have your public comment and expect the city council to turn around. You have to develop a relationship. And I've developed that relationship. And I am invested in Ogden. And I am going to surround myself with people who have been here for a very long time and kind of know where things are going. But it's not, when you hire a CEO at a company, it's not a requirement that that CEO was born and raised in that town. When you hire a professional athlete, that athlete is hired for their skills and for their drive and for their passion, and that they're going to get the job done. It's that you don't have to be born and raised to be a pitcher for a softball team or a baseball team. And it's the same thing with a CEO. When you bring a CEO in, that is not a list of the criteria. It's based on what have you done and how connected are you to the community. And I am all in. I am all in, and I dove in when I got here, and that's how I got on the ticket. I didn't get on the ticket because I'm not connected. I got on the ticket because I know lots of community leaders that have lots of people that I'm listening to, and I'm telling them what I'm going to do for them. That's why. And so, you know, I hope that you'll vote for me. I'm happy to meet with you if you want to talk one-on-one. On my website and on my Facebook and on all of my printed material is my phone number and my email. And I always return them. My life right now is a series of meetings and phone calls, and it's really kind of crazy, but I do get back to people. I do respond. And so if you have more questions you want to ask me, let's schedule some time and we'll sit down and we'll have a beverage and we'll talk about it. Any other questions? Okay. All right, well, I think we're going to close it up. And the most important thing is that you vote. And that if you are not registered, you need to be registered to receive your ballot in the mail by October 5th. If you miss that October 5th deadline, you can still register and vote on the same day at the library, but you need to bring a state ID or a driver's license with you. So if you are not registered by the 5th, you're not going to get a ballot in the mail. For the people who are registered, that's a cakewalk. It comes in the mail, and you can sit down on your couch, and you can open it up. And there are 3 important things about your ballot. 1, that you make sure that your information is correct. 2, that you sign it. They will not accept your ballot if you do not sign it. And you can get it to them either by putting a stamp on it and using the post service, or you can march on down to City Hall or the library, and they have big voter collection boxes. Those are the most important things. So we only have 27,000 and change registered voters in a city of 90,000. And you need to vote to have your voice heard. And if you think that it doesn't matter, we are making decisions at a municipal level that are going to affect your life from a tax standpoint, from a recreation standpoint, from a public safety standpoint, from streets and sidewalks. So not voting is voting. And so you have to make sure that you're voting for what's important to you, because if you just stand back and let other people have their voices counted, your voice will not matter. So it's really important that you do that. So make sure you ask all your friends and your family, are they registered? And then encourage them to reach out. Reach out to Mike Caldwell. Reach out to me. Have conversations. Ask those questions. One person's going to be a little more accessible than the other. All right, I think we're done. Are we out?
Hang on.